Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Stardom Cast, a podcast we talk all things about the fantastic, amazing, and spectacular professional wrestling company that is Stardom. And folks, we do it in a positive and would like to think fun manner. I'm your host for this bonus interview episode. My name is Matt Turner, and folks, we're joined by top tier herself, one Jazmin Allure. Jazmin, welcome to the Stardom Cast, and thanks for taking the time to hang out with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm so sorry about the dogs in the back.
That's okay. Dogs plural, so you have more than one?
Yes, I have two Shih Tzus, but they're very playful with each other, so they're out there like playing around.
No, that's good. We'll have some background noise again. And I said this before we hit the record button. Listeners of the Stardom Cast do know that from time to time, my crazy cat Ace, he'll jump up on the hamper that is at that door, and then he'll jump on the door, and it sounds like a yeah. I think the one time Rob and I were recording, and he thought maybe somebody hit my car in the parking lot. I was like, no, it's just my cat Ace. But that's the beauty of pets. That really is. That is the beauty of pets. But again, Jazmin, thanks again so much for joining us on the Stardom Cast. I was doing some research, and then I was going through my research, and correct me if I'm wrong, but did you start your pro wrestling career in the famed year that is 2020?
Yes. It was kind of crazy because I got like a taste of wrestling, so I got like 2 or 3 matches in, and then COVID hit.
That's what I was looking at, just some stuff, and then I was like, oh boy, she literally started her career in maybe the worst time possible. And you're based, what, out of Texas, correct?
Yes.
So what was it like with the athletic commission there? Like, was it just you just started wrestling and then everything was shut down? Or were you guys able to do some shows after a few months just in like empty arenas? Or like, what was that like?
Yeah, Texas pretty much opened up pretty quickly. I think it was like a couple months, and then I was able to like train again, and like there was some shows, not a lot, just some here and there, and some of them were like um maybe 10 to 20 people. You couldn't have too many people in a building. They had to be like 6 feet apart. So yeah, then I started doing AW, which I was very grateful for that same year in December, and that was like without a crowd, like us wrestlers, we were in the crowd. So yeah, it was different.
It's crazy because like everything shut down pretty much sports wise except for wrestling. And you look at like the top two companies, WWE and AEW. Again, AEW had the opportunity to go work some shows there very early in your career, which is, I mean, that's a big feather in your cap. But again, I watch AEW every week. I have friends that work there, and it was like, yeah, they're wrestling in Daly's place, but they were keeping the wrestling going. WWE was wrestling in the Thunderdome or whatever they were calling it, so they were keeping it going. So it's really cool to see that, we're all sitting home, we're all just going crazy, trying to think of something to do to keep our brains occupied. And, Major League Baseball shut down, the NFL didn't start yet, the NBA were doing like the bubble league, but there was still pro wrestling. And so it just always seems no matter what, pro wrestling is there. Pro wrestling is the only sport that doesn't, like, there's no off season. Like once football's over, there's this or that, or the NBA or the NHL, whatever. But I think that's always one of the many great things about pro wrestling is there is no off season. So yeah, that definitely had to be weird for you. Just, you finally graduated from the school that you went to for pro wrestling. You just started getting in some shows. You're probably feeling really good, really confident about yourself, because it takes a special breed to be a pro wrestler. Like, I'm in this, fraternity that not a lot of people can do. And then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, by the way, the world is shut down. So that was the really, like I said, I was doing my research and I was like, oh, wow, she started, like, she just got a little taste. And it was like, pull it away. So yeah, that definitely had to be really difficult.
Yeah, and also when like there was a crowd, like a big crowd. I think I wrestled Thunder Rosa and Dynamite, and that was like the first time I heard like a big crowd, and I was like, oh my, I was even like shook because I had been wrestling in front of like 10, 20 people or like no crowd, and then when I finally heard the crowd, it was like, it almost like kind of scared me. I was like, oh my god. But it was so cool. I mean, they make everything so much better. So
Yeah, kind of spooky little. I'm in Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, we're notorious for having one of the toughest athletic commissions when it comes to pro wrestling. And literally, the two companies that I was working for at the time when COVID shut down, what they did is they rented a warehouse or a storage facility. Excuse me. And they put a ring there. and then they just taped stuff for YouTube. And it was funny because in order for you to get in the storage facility, you had to have a code. So you would just see like 40, 50 wrestlers that would just be parked wrestling in a ring. And then you would see somebody that would come by the storage unit to pick up like their lawn chairs or whatever. And they're like, what the heck is going on there? But you make the best out of a bad situation. You really do. And I remember they put the ring as far back to the wall as possible. They had like 2 cameras where they would just film in the ring, and they would just have the boys and the girls that were the workers, because we couldn't invite fans, obviously. We were the ones making the noise. So even though there weren't any fans, there were some of the loudest shows I ever did, because there's 30 or 40 wrestlers that we knew when to boo, we knew when to cheer, we knew when to, it was kind of like the Rocky Horror Picture Show. So yeah, it was definitely a weird era. It feels like a lifetime ago. It really does. But yeah, you cut your teeth in at a tough time there, Jasmine. That's for sure.
I did, but it's part of the journey. I'm still super grateful.
Yeah, it's part of your story as well. So speaking of your story, let's start at the beginning. What got you into pro wrestling? Like, was there something that you watched as a fan, or if you watched it with a family member? Was there like a match or a wrestler that really hooked you in as a fan and then brought you into saying something like, you know what, that's something that I want to do for my career?
Yeah, so I was always a fan as a like young kid. I was like that annoying sister that wanted to do whatever her brother was doing, and my brother was watching wrestling. So I got into it really young. I think my first show was like 4 or 5 when my mom took me to like SmackDown and like a couple like Raws and a couple other shows. So I was always into it. It was always like in like playing on the TV because my dad was also a fan of wrestling. And then I finished my first year of college, and like I was in and out like throughout like my life, in and out of wrestling. I watched the Four Horsewomen, and I was like, oh my god, like they're amazing. I came back and I started watching, Sasha, Bailey, like Charlotte and Becky, and I was like, oh, they're amazing. And I got caught onto it again. And then my dad took me to a CMLL show in Mexico, and it was a couple of like our family members that like went, and the environment was great. I loved the wrestling, and I was like, maybe I could do this. I was just like, it looks like so much fun. I came back like a week later to Austin, and I started training, and that's kind of how it started. Like I was a fan throughout my whole life, and it was just like that CMLO show that really like I was like, okay, this is what I can do.
So, and I did notice, and again, I definitely something I want to talk about when I was doing my research, that you wrestled in Arena, Mexico, and you just mentioned that you went to a show in CMLL. Again, I'm in the Northeast. I'm like 2 hours south of Philadelphia, over here in Pennsylvania. How far away are you from Mexico there in Texas? Like, how long of a drive is that?
Oh, a drive. So Mexico City, like a drive, like 25 hours.
Oh,
It's a drive. It's a drive. I fly there. My parents still live out there, so I go back and forth there a lot to visit them. But that was one of my goals because that was like the arena that like I saw wrestling, and I was like, that this is what I want to do. And like that was like the moment like it clicked for me, and then I got to wrestle there 5 years later and in front of my family, and that was the first time they ever got to see me wrestle. So that was like a really cool moment for me.
yeah, that's, you always hear about the certain arenas. Like obviously, like I always say, if I can go back in time, if I did DeLorean, for you Back to the Future fans, I would like the place I want to wrestle the most. It's not there, is the Sportatorium in Dallas, Texas, because I'm just a massive fan of the Von Erichs and everything that was built there in the '80s and the early to late '80s. But again, the ECW arena, again, that's not too far away from here. I would say blessed to wrestle there a handful of times. You got to wrestle in Arena, Mexico. That's like the Tokyo Dome, Madison Square. For those who don't know, for the eccentric WWE fans, that is basically, correct me if I'm wrong, Jasmine, that's the Madison Square Garden, pretty much of down south.
Yeah, it's an iconic arena. They've been around for I think 92 years now, and it's just solely wrestling. Like it's just wrestling there. That's the culture there. It's just wrestling, and it's been around for so long, and it's still the only Mexican-owned company now. So it's a big deal to wrestle there, and I was really grateful to have the opportunity. And that was my first time wrestling in Mexico, and also my parents seeing me. So I was really excited for that.
And that's one question I've always kind of asked myself that I never asked anybody, Jazz. But I think you actually just answered that question without me asking it. So, Arena Mexico, they don't do anything there but just but wrestling. Like, there's no other sports that play there that is just strictly there for wrestling.
It's just, but yeah, it's just their arena. Yeah.
Look at that. See, you're educating me, folks. See, our Jasmine's educating me, and I hope you educated the listeners as well. I did not know that. Wow, that is a really, really iconic wrestling. If you can take me through when you first started, like your training, and what was that like, and what was like the certain steps, and like once things started clicking, you realized like, okay, now I'm in this, I'm getting my feet wet. Now I have a taste of it. Like, what was your training like when you first started?
Oh man, when I first came in, I didn't know what to expect. I was one of those that like I was like a sponge, so I like got things really quickly, and I was so excited. I was so like so fearless. And also my whole body hurt for like 2 months. It's crazy.
That means
How
it's working.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like the muscles that were like I had no neck strength. I didn't know that was a thing, and in wrestling, that's like very important. Like when you're bumping. So like all that like it was so different, but I loved it, you know. I also came in with like a different mentality. I didn't come in to like be a pro, you know. Like I did it for fun. I just wanted to do it for fun. I was like going through a hard time. I just wanted to have some fun and like, you know, loosen up and enjoy life a little more. And then like I was kind of like pushed into like, you know, like a sink or swim type of situation. I debuted like at 5 months in. I probably wasn't ready, but my trainer was like, I want to see if you sink or swim. I swam. And yeah, I just kind of like kept it going. I got AW before I was a year in, before I was like, probably, I think I was like maybe 10, 15 matches in. So I was still really new, but I'm so grateful I got all these opportunities and I was able to like, you know, like I said, it was like a sink or swim. I swam.
Yeah, that's
So,
wild. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say that's wild that you had all these dark matches, all these matches for AEW less than a year in. And again, we always say one of the many beautiful things about pro wrestling is subjective. You can like what you like. There's certain companies that you can like. There's certain wrestlers that you can like, but the numbers don't lie. And AEW is the second biggest wrestling company in the world. Obviously, it's WWE. I mean, they have 40 plus years of equity. Nobody's touching them. But AEW comes in and it really gives a breath of fresh air in a different place for wrestlers to work. And here you are, less than a year in, wrestling for the second biggest wrestling company in the world. And and I'm putting my mind your journey. It's like you just started wrestling. Like, yes, okay, I did this. I don't think I'm ready for it, but you just said, sink or swim. Obviously, you swam because here you are 5 years later. We're having a chat. And again, great match with Bea Priestley last week at the Spark Joshi. Definitely wanted to end on that because that match absolutely blew me away, and it's getting a lot of really great press. But again, it's like, okay, sink or swim. I'm swimming. Okay, I'm doing well. I'm getting all this momentum, all this confidence, and then it's like, boom, COVID. Like, oh no, now what? And it's like, oh, guess what? The second biggest wrestling company in the world, they want you. And you're just like, for some shows, like, oh, okay. And then now you're building up the confidence. But what was that like less than a year in going to a big company like AEW? We have the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, and I believe Cody was there at the time, and MJF. It's like that locker room, you walk in and you just got to be like, one, excited, but you got to be a little bit nervous as well. Would I be correct?
Oh, so nervous. They also had it so quick. Like it wasn't like they gave me some like a lot like a big notice like beforehand. It was kind of like maybe a couple days. And then even then you had to do like all these like COVID testing. So like you had to make sure everything was fine before you left. So I grew up watching this and like being able to like be backstage with people who I grew up watching, like you said, like Cody, Chris Jericho was there, Matt Hardy was there. um it was surreal, it was like a pinch me moment, but I always remind myself this is what like I dreamed of ever since I was a kid. So like I just went with it, but it was honestly like some like I don't think it hit until like a couple days later, like being there. Like it was kind of like I don't know, like it was crazy. But it was also like so fun. I also was there for a couple months working with them, and I'm so grateful for that opportunity. I learned so much. It was like a learning experience because I had never learned TV, and TV is so different from independent wrestling, especially like when I've only done independent wrestling like 10 times. So learning like a TV style, learning like the cameras and everything. Dustin Rhodes too, who was our agent and the producer there and our coach. Like he taught me so much as well. Like being able to learn from people that I grew up watching was incredible, and like I still like pinch myself that I'm even in the same room as them and learning from them.
That you always see Dustin, you always hear that he's doing so much to work with the wrestlers, especially the female wrestlers. You always hear that like Finley helping, the Trish Stratus's, the Litas, the Four Horsewomen. I always say that, that's the great thing about the business. You have these legends that are passing down their knowledge, and that's how the business keeps getting better. You would always hear those stories about Terry Funk saying, I need to get the next generation of wrestlers ready for me to have a business to be able to enjoy. And you love hearing that. And you always hear these stories of Dustin Rhodes passing down the knowledge, especially working with the women. So would you say in those few months you were down there at AEW, he was really pivotal in your career and helping you get to that next level?
Yeah, him and Thunder Rosa. At the time I was training with Thunder Rosa here in Texas, and Jazz, who is incredible.
Wow.
I was able to learn from both of them at the same time, which was crazy and great because you're learning from someone who's, done it all in WWE and NWA and all these companies. And also like Thunder Rosa, who was and is still killing it in that company. So it was cool to have those females and like learn from them, because it's like different when you learn from a guy and a woman. And then also Dustin, who has so much knowledge, so that was really fun.
Yeah, again, Dustin, obviously a wealth of knowledge. His younger brother is the top star in all of wrestling. His dad, Dusty's one of the greatest to ever do it. And it's just like you get passing down the knowledge. His dad learned from Eddie Graham. Eddie Graham is one of the smartest bookers of all time. So it's like Eddie passes it down to Dusty. Dusty passes some stuff down to Dustin, and then Dustin passes it down to you. And if you think about it, that's really kind of almost has it goes. So you're almost learning fourth tier from like Eddie Graham, which is wild to put in perspective. It's like his dad is Dusty Rhodes, like one of the best to ever do it. And I'm sure there's tricks that he's teaching, that he's taught Dustin, that he's now teaching us. And again, you can clearly it's working because the women's division in AEW is just insane. It really is, with the Jamie Hayters, obviously the Tony Storms, the Mercedes Moné, the Thunder Rosa. You look what Athena's doing as well. I mean, Sky Blue, Mina Shirakawa. So many great wrestlers, women wrestlers on the AEW roster, and it's just Dustin Rhodes is down there and he's helping them continue to get better. So you just love seeing that, just the wealth of knowledge that everybody is getting. And again, you love hearing about that because that's how the business is going to continually get better. You did make mention about wrestling on TV, and TV completely different style. Correct me if I'm wrong. You may or may not have wrestled under another alias for WOW, Women of Wrestling. I believe that was taped somewhere like in Hollywood or Los Angeles, and that was a heck of a big production. So what was it like working there? Because it just seemed like it was a huge, really cool production. It was something different that we don't get here in the United States in all women's promotion. So what was that like working there and in taping as well?
Oh, that was so much fun. Like it's an all women's promotion, so it's a lot of fun, a lot of craziness. I met my best friends there. I also was very grateful and lucky that AJ was the one that brought me in, AJ Lee.
Wow.
So she was the executive producer at the time, and she's the one that recommended me to come there, and I was able to learn from her there as well. And she was able to like work with me, like with my story, with my character, being able to like work with her one on one and also learn from her. Like after every match, I would always get really good critiques from her. And she's someone I looked up to like growing up as well, because I remember seeing her and I was like, she's Latina. She's my size and she's killing it. Like she's dominating, and she was great on the mic. And I remember that was like one of the things I really like went to her was, you know, promos and, especially wrestling and all that stuff. So that was an experience in itself. I was only there, it was like a year and a half about that. I wasn't there for too long, but I really enjoyed my time there. It was really, really fun.
Again, everything is a learning experience. And correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was the Genie Bus, the Bus family that owns the Lakers, or used to own the Lakers. They just sold. I believe they started that company. Am I correct there?
They what? I'm sorry.
Did they own WOW? Wasn't it the Genie Bus? Wasn't she like the force behind that? I think I
I
remember seeing it somewhere.
Yeah, I think she still does. I mean, I'm not really sure honestly because she's like, selling. But yeah, at the time she definitely was the owner, and she would come to some of our shows sometimes.
Also, did you get a chance to meet her? Because I wonder what that was like. Because she's kind of a big, big figure. Oh, the Lakers are the Lakers. They're like the creme de la creme of sports franchises. But did you get a chance to meet her by chance?
No, so I was in school during my time at WoW. So I was always like flying in, having the match, and then flying out, and then coming back for a match, and then like I was always in and out. It was a crazy time. They were so great though. They were so supportive of my school journey because I was going to school here in Texas. So I would fly to train, fly back, fly to like do the show, come back and like go back to school. It was pretty crazy.
So you're probably like doing your homework like in the terminals and on the plane and stuff like that, making every moment count.
Yeah. No, I would like come in, like do the match, and then I would have to like do homework at night and then go, and then the next day there was another set of tapings, do homework in the morning, have like the matches, and then like fly out because I had to be back at school.
Yeah, it's a crazy. That's crazy. That's a crazy schedule. I mean, you're really making the most of your time, and again, it just goes to show your work ethic and how much you love pro wrestling because you're just like, yeah, this is just second nature. I just got to do the school, to do the school, and something to fall back on. But at the same time, it's like my love is for pro wrestling. So I'm literally flying from Texas to LA all the time. And that was great that you hear that they were so accommodating to your school. And then you're taping on a big stage there for women of wrestling. So again, that's really really great to hear. One of the many things that I've noticed about watching your matches is you're very fundamentally sound. Like you have great lockups, the wrist locks, the headlocks, the hammer locks. There's no daylight. Even I was watching a match just recently where you took, I think it was with Billy Starks, where you took her down into an armbar. It's very like almost like a shoot, like a Fujiwara style armbar. Is there like a wrestler that you watched that that you kind of mimicked that, or was there like anybody that took you in the back that kind of showed you how to like tighten up holds and things? Because like I said, that's the one thing I picked up right away watching you is you're very fundamentally sound.
So when I was gonna make my debut, again, it was like 5 months in. Um, I was learning all the like fun stuff, the head scissors, like everything that looks so cool. And my trainer was like, "You need to chain wrestle. Like you are not gonna make your debut unless you chain wrestle. Unless you know how to wrestle, you are not gonna make your debut. You know how to do all this cool stuff, but you need to learn that as well." So every like obviously there's training, right? But I would get there early, like 2 hours before, work on chaining. Then we'd have the like training, which was like, whatever my trainer had us do. Then stay like an hour until they close after. Work on chaining. Like that was just me every like even like during the holidays, like everybody would like leave town and there was like 4 or 5 people and I was like, yeah, let's chain. Like I need to learn how to chain. Like that was like my goal because I was like, I want, even though I was like still like 5 months in, I was like, okay, I need to learn how to chain. Um, and I learned from Zach Taylor. He's an independent wrestler out here. He really was the one that like was teaching me. I was watching different types of wrestling. I was just like watching chain. Like that's what I would like from so many people. And also just like watching my peers in training, like I was always like looking at what like their reversals and all that stuff. And, you know, Jazz was also really great with like having me slow down because, like she was like, work it, work the hold. Like, so it was just a bunch of people who helped me. But yeah, I love chaining. That's my favorite. Yesterday we have the chaining classes. I train at Dustin Rhodes. He has a school here in Austin or north of Austin, and there was chaining class yesterday, and I loved it.
And the thing with chaining, you could do that anywhere. You could literally be in an airport and be like, hey, let's lock up, take the top wrist lock, hammer lock, and none of that, you're not taking any bumps because as you get older, folks, let me tell you, that bump card, it does that. You don't think it does. You don't think it does, but as you get older, you're like, oh, that's what they were telling me 20 years ago. I shouldn't be taking head dumps on the apron in front of 45 people. But yeah, the chaining is great. You know, you talked about chaining, and I'm a massive fan of chain wrestling. Dean Malenko, William Regal, some of my favorite. It seems like the British really have that down to a science. Like Chris Hero is a great one. He studied so much of the British chain wrestling. Have you ever, by chain, in my opinion, I get asked a lot, as far as chain wrestling and technical wrestling goes, who's the best? In my opinion, there's Johnny Saint and everybody else. Have you ever got a chance to watch anything that Johnny Saint does?
Man, I watched a little bit of everything. I will say the one I did watch the most while learning was Dean. Dean, yeah, Dean was I
He
think
was there
my
in AEW. He was there in AEW when you were there, right?
yes, and I had a match. I believe it was with Big Swole, and he was our agent for that match. And I was trying to mark out. I was like, oh my god, like I literally studied you for chain, and I like watched you so much, and you're incredible. But yeah, I was professional.
Inside, you're like, oh my, you're like, yes, 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 like, but like, you know, but you're like, okay, yeah, no problem. But inside, you're just like, oh my goodness, this is like Dean Malenko. And then you know, now that I'm thinking about it, like Jerry Lynn, I believe, was there at that time as well, and another great chain wrestler. And he doesn't get enough credit because everyone remembers him from ECW, and rightfully so. And those insane matches he had with RVD, because they were big spots and they're so ahead of their time that they still hold up 20 some odd years later. But a great chain wrestler, Jerry Lynn.
Another one that is such an amazing human being. I also learned a lot from him. I did a seminar with him. I was like a month in. I was not great. I was a month in, but my trainer was always like, go do it. You know, it was at the school. And I was like, oh, I was so nervous, but he was so nice and he was able to help me with what I knew because I was like a month in. You know, I didn't know like almost like a lot. But I still had like a match. I had like a practice match. It was, you know, but I learned a lot from him. And also in AW, he like remembered me and he's always so nice, always so helpful, one of the nicest people I've ever met in this business. So he's another one that's great and deserves his flowers.
You'd always hear that Jerry Lynn was like too nice for pro wrestling. Like you always hear that. It's nice that he has a job, and again, his body. You could, because again, he was in the '90s. Him and Sean Waltman were 15, 20 years ahead of their time, and then what him and RVD did in ECW stands the test of time. And it's nice to see that even though, because we get older and our bodies do kind of cash out, that he still has, you know, a great mind for the business. And again, very much like a Dustin Rhodes passing down, Dean Malenko passing down the knowledge. So that's always great to hear. Always great to hear. Again, we talked about Arena Mexico. We kind of touch upon. I kind of want to just dive into that. Again, one of the most famous arenas in pro wrestling history. AEW was just there, sold it out. It's still one of the most prestigious buildings in all of pro wrestling. But what was that like when you got the phone call or email to say, hey, you want to come, first of all, wrestle for CMLL, the oldest professional wrestling company in the world, come to Mexico and wrestle for Arena Mexico. So that's like three things kind of checked off the box in one thing. It's like Arena Mexico, CMLL, and wrestling in Mexico, one of the richest countries for wrestling in, you know, on planet Earth. But like, what was, you know, was it an email, a phone call? Like, what was, to kind of just take us through what that was like?
So it was a phone call. However, like honestly, like 2 to 3 weeks before that, I got to train there. So like during the week, they hold trainings for the wrestlers that wrestle at Arena Mexico and CMLO. So I got to train with like Ultimo Guerrero, who's also like a legend down there. And just being there and training there, and you know, the trainings are intense, but it was so amazing. Like just even being there, and like, you know, the arena's empty, but like it's still like, wow, like this is so cool, you know. And then I got the call like, oh my god, like 2 days before. It was so quick. Everything happens so quick in wrestling. You just got to be ready. You like, that's the thing. You always have to be ready because you never know when the phone call is gonna come. You know, I wasn't expecting a phone call either. I was like, okay, it's been 2 to 3 weeks since I trained with them. You know, I haven't like heard anything, and they're like, hey, you know, you're having a match this Sunday. It was like a Friday. You're having a match this Sunday. And I was like, oh, okay. You know, like I was like so nervous, but also like so excited. That was like one of my favorite matches. And it's one of those matches that like I enjoyed so much just because I took I took it all in. I was like nervous, but I was like, no, I was like, I'm gonna enjoy it because this is the first time my parents are seeing me. The whole family, like 30 family members, went to see me because my whole family's in Mexico. So I moved out when I was 17 out here in the US to go to college, and I only have two family members here, which is my brother and a cousin. Everyone else is in Mexico. So that was everyone's first time like seeing me wrestle, and they're very supportive. My whole family is very supportive, and it was cool to have them there and have a match that I just went out there and enjoyed. And it was nerve-wracking, but it happened so fast that I was just like, I'm gonna just enjoy it and just try to have the best match that I can. And it was so fun. The girls were so amazing. We all took a shot afterwards, so that was a cue that it was a good match.
Of tequila? Was it tequila you took a shot of?
I think it was whiskey.
Ooh, the
Yeah.
Mexican whiskey. How was that? Is that burning?
So nasty, so nasty. But when you're done with the match, I was like, fuck it, oh, I'm sorry.
You're good. No, you're good. You're fine.
I was just like, yeah, let's do it. But it was nasty.
Yeah, you kind of have that adrenaline going. You're just like, absolutely, yeah, yeah, sure. So you moved out when you were 17 on your own. So you pretty much had to grow up fast. And that now I'm starting to connect the dots. That explains why you're able to go back down to Mexico, wrestle in Arena Mexico, go over to LA while you're in college, doing for WOW, less than a year in, going to Daly's Place, wrestling for AW. So you literally grew up like mentally so fast. And that's probably part of the reason why, and probably some of the reason for your success. And again, you love seeing you went and you bet on yourself. And look again, in 5 years, look at everything that you've done. And again, you very easily could have been detracted. Whereas like I put all this time in, effort, energy into being a wrestler, and it got taken away from me because of COVID. You stuck it out, and again, look already, AW, Arena Mexico, WOW, great matches all over the place. And not only that, but you participated last year in the Sherry Martel Invitational Tournament. Um, Now, I'm a generation before you. I started watching wrestling nonstop when I was like 3 or 4, which puts me 1986, 1987, just to show my age. Sherry Martel is somebody that was so far ahead of her time. And I just had a conversation with my good friend Allison Danger, who's on the show constantly. She's just a genius when it comes to pro wrestling. We were just talking about like, how cool would it be if Sherry Martel was in her prime now with how amazing women's wrestling is like. So that had to be a big honor for you. Sherry Martel, somebody that, like, you look at the people that blazed the trail for you. You've already mentioned with like a Trish, Alita, Becky, Sasha, not Mercedes, Charlotte Flair. But like Sherry's the one that blazed that trail like 20, 25 years prior. And you look at what she was doing, and it's like you watch it now from the 80s and the early 90s. She's so far ahead of her time. Again, look at when she was a manager in the WWF, WWE back in the 80s and 90s, because they really didn't have too much of a women's division. Everybody she managed was a top person. Randy Savage, Ted DiBiase, Shawn Michaels, helping Shawn Michaels get to that next level. What was that like being able to wrestle in a tournament honoring the late, great Sherry Martel?
Oh, like you said, honoring her. It was great. It was so fun. Also, it was like at Booker T's Reality of Wrestling. So having him there was crazy too.
She managed him too in WCW. That's right. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So, oh, it was so surreal. And being in a locker room full of like very talented girls, I always enjoy when I'm in a locker room full of like women because, I'm all about like, more women opportunities, more women shows, like you said, like there's so many of us now too. So it's like, it's crazy when like there's like still shows that don't have one women's match. I'm like, yeah, you could have found it. So it was great to be in a locker room, and that locker room was so cool too. Like everyone's so supportive of each other. Um, so it was really great to be in there. I got to wrestle Miss Braxton, who is insanely talented. She's one of my favorite wrestlers on the indies, and I got to wrestle her a couple times, and she's always so great to work with. So I enjoyed my experience in that show. I had a lot of fun.
Way into it, but you talked about just the women opportunities right now. They're at an all-time high. They really, really are. Again, for somebody that's been watching wrestling since pretty much the mid to late 80s, and obviously still going now, I've never seen the women opportunities. And not only that, but them absolutely crushing it. Let's start at the top. the WWE, in my opinion, and maybe just my Stardom bias, the best wrestler on that roster is Io Shirai or Io Scott. Like she's absolutely crushing it. And I was lucky enough to be there in Las Vegas for that phenomenal triple threat match she had with Rhea and Bianca Belair. And I will say this, that is the greatest women's match I've seen on American soil ever. I mean, it was insane, just the reaction that all three of those ladies got, especially Io. So again, you started at the WWE, in my opinion, the best. And I like Gunther. I think he's a great wrestler. Don't get me wrong. I like what's going on in NXT, Cody, they're all great. Sami Zayn, all those wrestlers are seeing, obviously CM Punk, how to say him, but Io is my favorite person to watch on that show. That's in that company, Julia as well. And then you go to AEW. The program they're doing with Tony Storm and Mercedes is unbelievable. And even before that, Tony and Mariah May, now known as Blake Monroe, that was the best story going on maybe in the history of AEW. And then we're throwing in a Jamie Hayter, a Thunder Rosa. We got to see Athena on TV, a Willow Nightingale, a Chris Statlander. I mean, there's a Serena Deeb, Deanna Purrazzo. Like that roster is absolutely loaded. And you go to a TNA, and unfortunately, I don't watch TNA as much as I should because it's only 24 hours in a day, but they're doing really well. And then you go over into Japan, which obviously that's where my expertise is in all of the female Joshi promotions that are female only are absolutely crushing it. Obviously, we have Stardom. Again, I mean, Stardom's there. The numbers they're doing in Cork and Hall on a monthly basis are it's insane. 2 months ago at All-Star Grand Queendom, they drew 7,500 people. You look at Marigold, they've been a company for 14, 15 months. Their shows are always packed. Sendai Girls, Marvelous, Oz Academy. These are wrestling companies that are drawing, 15, 16, 1,700 people. And it's not just one, like how it was a couple years ago when it was just started. There's so many different opportunities. Again, WWE, TNA, AEW, everything going on in Japan and the Indies. How much of inspiration or fuel to the fire does that give you? Like the world really is my oyster. There's not just one place to go to. Like in 20 years ago, it was just WWE, like because there was no AEW. Ring of Honor just started, TNA just started, WCW is gone, ECW is gone. But the landscape has changed so much in 25 years, especially for women. How much do you look at that and go, oh boy, I can literally do just about anything to make a living and make a name for myself?
Yeah, I think about it a lot because when I got into wrestling, I was not as like educated. I was just like, I just knew WWE and I knew a little bit about AEW. And then once I started training more and I like realized like all the other opportunities, like, Ring of Honor, like you said, all these companies that there exist. And I was like, wow, like I started like, I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. Like I started watching more wrestling. I'm like, oh, I want to like wrestle this person. I want to do this. I want to go to Japan. Like all the wrestling. I didn't know Japan was like, or wrestling was so big in Japan, like I learned that as I was like training. I didn't know much outside of, WWE. And I was like, dang, like, and then, like Mexico, Canada, like all these promotions. And I was just like, wow, like I really could do so much. And like I mentioned before, I didn't get into it to like make money. I just did it for fun. And when I realized like, oh, I can have a career and I could have a career outside of WWE or even outside of the US, I could like make money and like this could be like my full-time job. And, that's what it is now. Like this is my income, my sole income. So I'm very grateful for that. And it's so cool that like nowadays you can do that because I have heard stories where, women back in the day, like if it was, or even men, if it wasn't WWE, they weren't making a bunch of money. So it's cool that like nowadays you can make a lot of money without, a machine.
Yeah, and you love hearing that. Love hearing the fact that you're doing well based on everything that's going on in the independence and based on again your track record, your love for pro wrestling, the fact that you're constantly working at and improving. Again, the world is at your oyster. And again, we are Stardom Cast, so we're going to start asking some Japanese questions, especially about Stardom. Is there a few wrestlers like who, if say you were able to do a tour of Stardom, and you can pick 4 or 5 people to wrestle against, who would be like 4 or 5 people in Stardom that like are on the top of your list, or 6 or 7, whatever you want to get to? Is there a couple people that you look at over in Joshi, especially in Stardom, they're like, oh man, I would love to wrestle a Zumi or a Starlight Kid or a Saya Kamitani? Is there like a handful of ones that is my dream match for the next year or so?
Oh man. And there's so many like good girls. It's like so crazy. Um, so I would love to like have a match with Koguma just because that was gonna happen. Um, you mentioned Ozumi, like yes, she's a dream match as well. There's so many. It's so hard, and I'm the type of person that like I just want to learn from everyone. So like I hate to be the type of person, but like I really just want to wrestle like everyone there. I just want to learn, and I B, she's in Stardom, and like I like a couple months ago, she was in WWE. I wouldn't have like thought of her, but like she was one of those matches that I was like, she will push me, and she did. So I was so excited to wrestle her when she was a replacement, which I found out, I think like in the morning, that she was a replacement. I was so excited. I was like, oh my god, we're gonna like kill it. Like I was so happy. Like Kaguma was also like one of those people that was like very excited, and then like B, they're both different, styles. So I was like, oh, this is gonna be fun.
Yeah, and again, I wanted to talk about this, so you already touched upon it, so let's talk about it again. Spark Ignite in Texas, phenomenal show. Again, I can't plug it enough. Drum Trailer TV, $9.99. Just a phenomenal main event with Maya and Hazuki, and obviously Jasmine. I thought you and B absolutely tore it up. But it was, I think so you pretty much found out about it when us, the fans, found out about it. Because I woke up on Sunday and they said that Koguma was injured. She wasn't going to wrestle. I was like, oh, that was a match I was really looking forward to watching. Me and you were talking about, coming on the podcast. And I'm like, oh, we'll just talk about your match with, again, we're a Stardom cast, Koguma, her and Hazuki, the only 3-time Goddess of Stardom Tag Team Champions. Like, oh, man, like she was going to wrestle Stardom wrestling. That's what we are going to talk about. And then it's like, wait, she's wrestling Bea Priestley, former World of Stardom champion. Bea Priestley, only one of 2 Gaijins to hold the red belt. The other one, folks, is Toni Storm, and she's doing A-OK for herself. So you didn't find out until that morning, until like maybe a handful of hours before bell time.
Yes, I didn't, and but I wasn't mad about it. I was so excited for Kaguma. I was like, that would have been the first match I wrestled like a Japanese girl, a Joshi. So I was so excited because I had never done that style or anything. I had wrestled Shida, but it was on AW, and it's a little different. It's TV. I think we had like it was a tag match. We had like 3 minutes, 4. So I don't really like. I wasn't really able to like kind of like work with her and have actual match. So like Kaguma was gonna be like the first Japanese Joshi wrestler that I was like gonna be able to have like a decent, a long match, I would say. And I was like, okay, I'm excited for this. Then it was B, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be great. We're gonna be like. I didn't want to. We're just gonna beat each other up. Sorry, I almost.
We know you were going to go there. No, it's fine. I told you before we recorded. If a couple slip for the case of the story, you can. Again, Allison Danger, we love her. Just a couple slip from her, and that's okay. But no, you're good. Yeah, and that I noticed halfway through, like because I watched her a little bit when she was in WWE as Blair Davenport, but you really brought, and she was good. Don't get me wrong, but like my favorite B stuff is her run as World of Stardom champion. The matches with Mayu and Kagetsu and Momo Watanabe, and great matches with Utami, Hayashishita, great tag stuff with her and Jamie Hayter. That is my favorite era of her. And again, her stuff was good as Blair Davenport. Obviously, she gets released. She's back to top Gaijin, Bea Priestley. Halfway through that match, I was like, oh boy, Jasmine brought out World of Stardom champion Bea Priestley in this match. And I was like, again, I enjoyed her. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed her stuff. But as you said, TV, sometimes you only do 4 or 5 minutes. Like you guys had time to tell your story. And you really brought it out. And I'm going to, this is a story I want to tell, obviously face to face, and our listeners. I always talk about, like, my wife is like the litmus test when it comes to pro wrestling. She's never seen pro wrestling until me and her started dating. And really all she watches is kind of AEW. That's kind of like our one night to watch wrestling. She knows a little bit about Stardom. So we were getting ready for church on that Sunday morning, and that's when I found out, it's not going to be Koguma, it's going to be Bea Priestley. I was like, oh, this is going to be really good. My wife she knows who Koguma is because obviously the Stardom cast doesn't know who Bea is. So she was getting ready to do something, and she's walking back and forth in front of the TV. I was like, oh, that's Bea Priestley. That's the wrestler that's replacing Koguma. So she was putting stuff in her car, and halfway through the match, and you're making your comeback, and you were really taking it to Bea. And I was like, wow, Jasmine's like throwing some chops and forearms. She's like, wow, that other girl is really, really good. I said, that's the girl I'm actually interviewing next month or next week. So really great showing. You kind of made the best out of a bad situation. Again, everybody, we were looking like we were going to wrestle Kagama. She goes down with a knee injury, but you get Bea Priestley. And that was a phenomenal match. And I tweeted out as soon as I got done watching, I was like, you two absolutely tore the house down. But what was like working with one Bea Priestley?
But first off, thank you. Second, yes, it was so last minute, but I was so excited. Like once I saw the replacement, I was like, okay, this is gonna be good. She's so amazing. She's so knowledgeable. She's also very nice. I like when I meet people who I've seen on TV and like I get to meet them and they're like nice and because you never know what you're gonna get. Like, let's be honest, you never know what you're gonna get. And she was so easy to work with, but so fun, and also like it was different. She really brought out something because like I like the feel, like the hits. I like to like be able to like I would be honest, like I trained with guys, so I was like hit a lot, but that's what I like. I like to feel it. I like, and she's trained in Japan. She definitely knows how to lay it in and safely and everything. So it was a difference, I will say, but I loved it. And I went in there. I was so nervous because I was like, oh my god, like, gonna be able to keep up? Sometimes I get in my head, I train and everything, and I've done like a lot of matches by now. But you like sometimes, you're just like, oh my god, am I gonna be able to keep up with her? And I was so happy that I was, and that we had a good match. And I was like, I hope we run it back. Hopefully we can run it back maybe in like Japan or something.
Yes,
Really great.
yes, absolutely. I'm a big believer of putting it out there in the universe. Let's get Jazmin versus B in Japan. I'm going to keep adding on first Stardom in Cork and Hall. Who does not want to see that? Who does not want to see that? But yeah, again, that was I was really blown away. Just a phenomenal match that the two of you had. As we start to kind of wind things down here a little bit, just a couple last questions. Obviously, Hazuki is the Spark Joshi champion. You were supposed Kagama was there as well. Again, you were supposed to wrestle her. Hazuki and Kagama, FWC, one of the best tag teams in all of wrestling over the last handful of years. If they were to come back to a Spark show, and if they do FWC Hazuki versus Kagama versus a Jazmin Allure, and pick a partner, who would you like? And the world's your oyster, whether it's Japan or whether it's somebody that you've teamed with or worked with on the independents. Who would you like to team with to take on one of the best tag teams in all of wrestling, regardless of country or gender, in FWC?
So, my best friend Johnny Robbie, she's out in Japan right now.
Yeah, for Marigold, yes.
Yeah, doing Marigold. She's doing Marvelous. She's doing like so much stuff. Noah, so she's out there, and me and her have so like really good chemistry. Like we wrestled each other, and it was good. We like have trained together. Actually, wait, no, I don't think I have trained with her. She was injured. She was there, she was there, but she was injured. But like we we were like best friends, so that would be so cool to do. And she also has like some Japanese stuff. She's wrestled a lot of Joshis, so that would be so fun. One, because she's my best friend, and then two, because I think she's so talented, and I think it would be so good.
There we go. Wow, Jazmin and Johnny taking on Hazuki and Kagama. That is a dream match, and you can put that anywhere: Canada, Mexico, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, Japan. That's a match I definitely would like to see. The next question I have to ask you, obviously, Rob is he couldn't do this interview with us. He asks us every interview, and it's a great question. If we're in the middle of a zombie apocalypse, and you could pick four women's wrestlers, current today, anywhere in the world, to kind of be in your group to help protect you, what four wrestlers, you can go WWE, TNA, Japan, Germany, what four women's wrestler would you like to be kind of like in your Walking Dead clique?
That is so good. Man, I'm tiny, so I'm gonna try to choose like I'm gonna go with Rhea Ripley.
Everybody goes to Rhea. That's a great one. That's a great one.
Is it like just present or like
You can, you know what, pretend we have, I believe today's the 40th anniversary of Back to the Future, so we got the DeLorean. We can go back in time. Go ahead. You can pick somebody up on the way. Go ahead.
And female, right?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Rhea Ripley. I would go with Nia Jax. I feel like she can go throw hands. And she'd be like, yeah. I saw that one match with like her and Charlotte. And I was like, yeah, they can throw hands. I would just go with like some of like the girls in Mexico because they also like they're one of those people that work snug too. So I'm gonna go with like Lady Maravilla and Lady Flammer. Those are two. They're in AAA. I've met them and I think they would protect me. They're so nice that I feel like they always like are like, oh my god, like Jasmine. So I feel like they would be like, yeah, this is our girl. You know, they'll
We're taking you out, Sam. I just realized because of all the wrestling that you've done, the Mexican style and whatnot, Momo Kogo obviously wrestles in Stardom, has done a lot of stuff in Mexico. I think you and Momo Kogo would have an absolute banger. That's a match I would definitely like to see. Last question is kind of a two-parter. Out of everybody that you've wrestled, one, who has hit you the hardest? And two, what is your favorite match or two matches that is your favorite?
Okay, so who's hit me the hardest? I will say Thunder Rosa chops really hard. And I get it. I also trained with her, so I knew what I was expecting. She chopped me so hard. My rhinestones like flew off my like gear.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's just how she is, you know. So I will say she's one of the people that hits really hard. She chops really hard. And then one of my favorite matches, so I had a match with Serena Deeb at Wildcat Wrestling, and Serena Deeb is also so freaking amazing. I really love that match. I don't really get to play the good girl a lot. I'm always like a heel, and I know with like B, that was also a thing. I was supposed to be like a heel for Ruma originally, and then like I ended up being a baby face with B. So whenever I get to be a baby face and like I actually like enjoy it, it's always a good match for some reason. Like I love my match with B. I will say that was one of like she definitely pushed me, so that was one of my favorites. With Serena at Wildcat was one of my favorites. I the one time I wrestled Johnny Robbie, we won like it was such a good match, and it was like we weren't even friends then or like anything, and I was like, oh wow, like we just clicked. So I'll say that.
There you go. I've seen that you wrestled Janai Kai a few times as well. She looked like I've seen her. She works a really great Joshi style. She seems like she really brings it as well.
Yeah, she does. She does kick really hard too. But I will say Thunder Rosa still takes the trophy on that. She just chops so hard. But I love it too, I'm like it like even fires you up even more in the match.
Yeah, I get like you like to feel it, and then for the cell, and then it's just like, okay, I know how hard they're hitting me, so I know the barometer. I kind of have to hit you back. So no, I totally get that. Jazmin, this was a phenomenal interview, a great chat. It was really great going into your insight and how much love and passion and the work that you put can continue to do. And I think I speak for all of our listeners on the Stardom cast that we cannot wait to see what is next for you, because the world really is your oyster, and we definitely do really want to see some matches with Jazmin in Cork and Hall for Stardom. So let's get it out there. Let's make it happen. Jazmin, before we sign us off, if you want to just plug yourself and tell people where they can see you coming up.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. You guys can follow me at Jazmin Allure, JAZMINALLURE. That is my handle on all social medias.
Folks, questions, comments, suggestions, anything you need from me, Matt Turner OF on the Instagram and Twitter is the easiest, fastest, and best way to get a hold of me. If you want to shoot me an email, that's perfectly fine. The email address simply is thestardomcast22@gmail.com. And folks, that's going to wrap it up for another fun-filled interview with our good friend, one Jazmin Allure. Folks, we greatly appreciate your support. Can't do without you. It's like I always say, it's just not my podcast. It's our podcast, because we're all together, everybody's different, everybody's special.